Hi everybody, this is the baseball head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, and welcome back to the baseball head. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button as we watch the playoffs continue and soon the World Series. The Mets did not make it. We've gone over this many times over the last few weeks since the season ended. The biggest reason the Mets did not make it is because of their starting pitching. Did not give them length. They didn't have an anchor at the top of the rotation. And quite frankly, the pitching coach did not help matters. One of the good things that has happened so far in this offseason is that the Mets let go Jeremy Hefner, who had been a terrible pitching coach. The media had been covering for him for many years, and it had been time that he be made to account, be held responsible. We're talking about responsibility. You know, some of the things we want to see the Mets do is not only bringing new talent to help this club out, but also let go people that aren't doing the job, you know, and trading players and bringing in players that have a little bit tougher exterior and interior to deal with the pressure of being in New York and the pressure of winning. Pressure of winning is very difficult. And to have excellence, you have to be on point all the time. You can't be wavering at any point. And that's what happened here. This group, what's that line from the Avengers? There wasn't a lot of conviction here. I never saw them sort of have the sense, we're going to win when we get to the ninth inning and finish the ninth inning. You didn't feel that they were convicted. They didn't feel like that they believed it 100%. But as you know, like I said to start this video, the Mets need pitching. They need an ace, okay? There are some players that are going to be available. Framber Valdez, which I've not talked much about him over the last few weeks, but he will be a player that the Mets could sign as a free agent. That'll take a commitment from ownership as well as David Stearns. He does not like signing players, specifically pitchers, for more than 3 years, and that is going to be an interesting case there. And so will be the Tigers ace, Tariq Skubal, who won the Cy Young Award last year in the American League. He's probably going to win it this year as well. But there's been a lot of sort of going back and forth with him and the Tigers. There's a $250 million gap in the money between the player and the Tigers. Now, Skubal's agent is Scott Boras. And the fact that this part of the story came out means that Scott Boras went to his media, specifically John Heyman, and John Heyman put out there that there's $250 million apart in the negotiation. So in all likelihood, the Tigers are going to be very active because they are a good team. They have a big manager. They have a very good manager in A.J. Hinch. They have a good team. But they're going to have to figure out how to replace this player if they're forced to move him. They could keep him, but then they could lose him and get nothing for him or trade him now. Now, the Mets have a big farm system, the best farm system according to all reports in baseball. They have a lot of pitching. They have a lot of infield help. They have a lot of catching help. Those are the things that the Mets are very strong in terms of their farm system. And their pitching has taken a major step. We saw 3 young guys pitching late August and September: Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, and Brandon Sproat. McLean is not going to go anywhere. I think the Mets view him as a part of this future. Jonah Tong, I think they'll move. They have to. Brandon Sproat, I think they'll move. They have to. And there are other players that the Mets have in their farm that are pitchers, like Will Watson, Jonathan Santucci, and a few others that the Mets would be very willing to move. And the Mets have infielders galore. They have a plethora of infielders. They can move Mark Vientos. They can move Brett Beatty. They have so much depth on the infield that they could really help the Tigers or any team load up. And the Mets would not miss a beat. Now, let me read you from MLB trade rumors. This is another wrinkle. Mets expected to show interest in Tariq Skubal. About ahead of his final year on the team-controlled Tigers ace, Tariq Skubal has gotten plenty of attention as fans and clubs alike have begun to turn their attention towards the offseason. Detroit's reported extension offer of less than $100 million over 4 years last offseason does not inspire confidence that the club will be able to lock him up long term. But President of Baseball Operations Scott Harris gave a non-answer about Skubal's future during his end-of-season press conference this past week. It's impossible to say at this point whether Detroit would consider trading their ace this winter, but the fact they didn't talk about it, and they're non-committal, tells you that he's going to be moved. But Will Salmon of The Athletic writes that the Mets are expected to be involved in that market if Skubal were to be made available. It's not exactly a surprise. The Mets had perhaps the most disappointing season in baseball this year, given that they missed the postseason during Juan Soto's first season in Queens after signing a $765 million deal. Much of that disappointment can be chalked up to the lackluster rotation that crumbled down the stretch and posted 5.09 ERA after July 1st. That was good for just 25th in the majors. Injuries and underperformances from virtually every established arm in the rotation mix besides Clay Holmes and David Peterson. Now, I would mention about Peterson, he pitched well until we got a little bit past the All-Star break. But then the last 6 weeks, he kind of ran out of gas, had pitched a lot of innings, and he just sort of fizzled out. Also, while youngsters like Nolan McLean, Brandon Sproat, and Jonah Tong offer some optimism for the future, it would be understandable for the Mets to seek more certainty this winter than they can offer. Now, I want to skip this part about Paul Skeens. That's a separate issue. I don't believe he's being moved. Salmon speculates that the Tigers could ask for a package along the lines of Tong and Sprout plus top infield prospect Jeff Williams in exchange for Skubal's services. I think this could be a player that could be 4 for 1 player. That is a fair trade. And usually with these big players, it's usually 4 players for 1, or usually once in a while 5 players for 1. I would not be. I would consider moving David Peterson in this kind of trade, because you could say to the Tigers fans, "Look, we got an established starter for him. He was an All-Star last year in 2025. He pitched well in postseason. We'll have him for a year. He'll be much easier to sign than Skubal will be. Skubal's a top pitcher in baseball, top 3 or 4 pitcher in the league, and probably the best pitcher in the American League. So he is a guy that would be worthy of bringing an all-star pitcher. And you could say, well, we brought in Jeff Williams, who's the Mets' best prospect, along with Jonah Tong or Brandon Sprout. And maybe you could sprinkle in Ryan Clifford or maybe Carson Benj. Although I don't like the idea of moving him because Mets don't have a lot of outfield depth in their farm system. Maybe A.J. Ewing could go. Maybe Nick Morabito, who's playing in the Arizona Fall League, he could go in a deal. Chris Suaro, who's a catcher, he could go. He's a catcher / first baseman outfielder. He had an excellent season in Brooklyn and in Binghamton. He's doing really well in the Arizona Fall League. So the Mets, like I said, have a lot of depth in their farm system now. They can afford to make a trade like this. A few years ago, they really couldn't do that. I would also mention, and I think it's important to know, in my opinion, they need to get another starter in here as well. So getting a player like Skubal and signing a free agent, a better free agent than what they did last year, a guy like Ranger Suarez, Zach Gallen, Dylan Cease, guys that have pitched a lot, that don't get hurt, okay? And they're better pitchers than, say, Frankie Montas and quite frankly, Sean Manaea when the Mets signed him initially 2 years ago. I was not all too enamored with that deal. I know he pitched great the first year, but we saw how he took a major step back. But you hope with a new pitching coach able to get these guys to throw strikes, which they were not able to do the last several years. Hopefully he can, and the new guy can change that with Manaea. But be that as it may, let's need to get, like I said, need to get a big time starter in here, either through free agency or a trade. Okay, Skubal's going to want $400 million. He's going to want to break, and Scott Boras is going to want to break that money to get the $400 million. He wants that. That's what it's going to take to sign him. How many years? I don't know. But that's going to be the amount. He's going to want him to get the most money per year for any starter, But he's a big starter. He's left-handed. He pitched really well in the postseason for the Tigers this past year, even though the Tigers didn't win. He pitched great for them. The Mets need to do this. This is one of the obvious things the Mets need to do to change this team, is to get a big starter in here. This is a Mets team that wants to be a big team. You need a big starter. I know the Dodgers don't really do that, but the Mets need to do that. Don't worry about the Dodgers or any other team. Mets need a big starter to be an anchor in this rotation. You do that, then you can figure out what you want to do. But I would mention you need to get another starter in here besides him. Clay Holmes, you throw him back in the rotation. That's what's great about Clay Holmes, is you can put him in the bullpen too. You know, I would mention, if the Mets lose Edwin Diaz, you say to Clay Holmes, you want to be the closer of the team? You do that. That's not the worst thing in the world. You know, and you keep David Peterson. You got these kids. You got Sean Manaea coming back, Kodai Senga. I think the Mets might trade him this offseason. I think there's a very good chance of that. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. And, of course, follow me on Facebook. The Facebook account's doing really well. And I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. And hopefully you like this video. Hit that subscribe button. As you know, we like to make fun of the Yankees, even though people complain. They complain that I don't should be talking about the Yankees. The Mets lost. That's okay. It's all good. All's fair in love and war, and this is fun. And a lot of people don't like the Yankees, and a lot of people don't like the Mets, but it's fun to talk about it and to see this sort of melting down from the Yankee fans to the general manager to the players. Players don't care. They're going on vacation. They don't care. They get a break. I'm sure some of them want to play, right now. I'm sure Major League Baseball like to see the Yankees play, but nope. None of the American League. They got the Mariners right now and the Blue Jays. Blue Jays, as I record this video, are winning in the 8th inning. Looks like they're going to go to Game 7. But the Yankees did not have a good finish. Yankee fans are very disgruntled about the way the team has been treading water since 2009. They haven't been to the World Series since 2009. It's the longest stretch, the third longest stretch in the history of the Yankees without them actually winning a World Series, and which is wonderful to watch because then the Yankee fans get all pissed. I got family members that are Yankee fans. They get all pissed off about it, which I think is great. But anyway, so former Yankees Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez criticized the Yankees heavily and criticized Brian Cashman heavily as well. They do not like Brian because of their years here, especially at the end with Cashman as the general manager. He's been the general manager of the Yankees for almost 30 years. Do you believe that? This guy's been around since 1998. Almost 30 years. It's amazing. The Yankees prior, when George Steinbrenner was alive, was known as a, what's that line from Seinfeld? They get rid of managers. He gets rid of managers like bowel movements. Gets rid of them very quickly. He got rid of them very quickly. Also, the Yankees have only had 3 managers since 1996. So for 30 years, they've had 3 managers. That's stability. But they had Bob Watson here. They had Stick Michaels, and now they've had Cashman for all these years running the team. And he's not getting fired. He'll retire before he gets fired. He's never going to get fired. Steinbrenner's loved this guy. He's not going anywhere. Neither is Aaron Boone, for that matter. Cashman loves Boone. But here's Brian Cashman. They did I guess on Thursday, Friday, they did the end of season press conference with the media. And Cashman, basically shot back at Jeter and A-Rod. And this is what he had to say. This is from MLB.com. Cashman refutes Jeter, A-Rod. I've never picked the lineup. Yankees general manager Brian Cashman has pushed back on the criticisms voiced by Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez in the wake of New York's season-ending loss to Toronto in American League Divisional Series Game 4 on October 8th. During the MLB on FS1 postgame show that night, A-Rod said the Yankees had one of the worst constructions of a roster I've ever seen. Jeter followed by saying, I'm pretty sure manager Aaron Boone is not the one that's calling every move they make throughout the game. Although Jeter also said he had no inside knowledge of such. I would mention that Derek Jeter traded Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees. And that is when all the trouble for the Yankees, in terms of construction of their roster, really began. That's when all the problems started, with the way the Yankees are run as a team. Jeter contributed to that by getting rid of Stanton. On Thursday, Cashman went on WFAN radio to respond to the pointed words from the two franchise legends, especially those from Jeter, about the source of the Yankees' in-game decisions. The club's longtime general manager was adamant that he has never had direct influence on starting lineups or in-game choices, no matter who has been the Yankees' manager. Now, prior to Aaron Boone being the manager, Joe Girardi was the manager. And he was, I guess, could be described as stiff. Not a big personality, just all about baseball. It could be described as very old school as a manager. And they got rid of him, which made no sense. He had done an excellent job with the Yankees. He got into the ALCS with a young team in 2017, and then they fired him because they were tired of his sort of being grumpy and not being so friendly, outside the lines. They kind of got tired of his act, I guess. But people miss him in a big way. And then Argo mentions that. It's not true, clearly, Cashman said of Jeter's words, and they don't know. Clearly, they don't know. Clearly, they don't know. That's a little emphasis. I know that Jeter said that. I don't know what he meant by that. He did say he doesn't have inside knowledge when he said it, but he did say it for whatever reason. I think that's the bugaboo that people get to throw out there when they've got nothing else to throw. Oh boy, that's not nice. There's always the boogeyman of other people are making the calls. Analytics. Now, somebody wrote to me, this is interesting, that the Mets board, a guy wrote this insane comment to me. I don't know if he wrote it to me on Facebook or he wrote it to me on YouTube. He said, the reason the Mets brought in Kai Correa is so that David Stearns can have a yes man in the Mets dugout. I would mention, David Stearns hired Carlos Mendoza. And you work for an organization. You do what your organization and your business and your employer does. If you don't do that, there will be problems. You'll be reprimanded. You could lose your job. So people say, well, you got to be, he's a yes man. You don't do this on your own job. So what would you expect at another business? At the end of the day, he continued, you put Joe Torre under deposition. You put Joe Girardi under a deposition. Or you put Aaron Boone under a deposition. I've never picked the lineup. We've never picked the lineup. We don't tell them who to play. We don't tell them who to pitch. Whether it's the pen or the rotation. Or you do make the moves. You make the trades. It's just a sad throwaway comment for people to make who don't really know. Cashman did say that he called Jeter as soon as he heard the comments to clarify whether the Hall of Famer truly believed what he said on TV. According to Cashman, Jeter repeated that he has no inside knowledge about the opinion he expressed. Although he did tell Cashman he feels like Boone gets too much of the blame for the Yankees' shortcomings. What's interesting is how quickly Cashman called him. Bit of a guilty conscience, don't you think? Cashman then stressed to Jeter that no one other than the Yankees manager dictates who's going to play in the game. Quote, those are the facts. Those are the truths. Then turns his attention to A-Rod and his comments about roster construction, saying it doesn't make any sense. Because first of all, they both picked us to win the World Series 48 hours before we got eliminated. A-Rod had a great career. He punched through with one championship. Derek has had a lot more than that. They're obviously respected people. That doesn't mean their opinions are always correct every time they throw them. Very thin skin. This wasn't the first time that Jeter and A-Rod publicly expressed displeasure with the 25 Yankees. Following loss to the Marlins on August 2nd, Jeter said the team makes too many mistakes on the field. And A-Rod said there's a lack of accountability from the Yankees' current culture. Boone responded the next day, saying he disagreed with A-Rod's accountability comment, but understood that such words come with the territory when you're leading a team that is falling short of high expectations. With their elimination in the ALDS, the Yankees' World Series championship drought extended to 16 seasons. It's the franchise's second longest span without a title since it was rebranded as the Yankees in 1913. Its longest stretch without a title is 17 years. It's from 1979 to 1995. So the Yankees franchise has not gone through this kind of losing in a long time. It's wonderful. But the fact that Cashman was so quick to call Jeter, that's a guilty conscience right there, folks. That is a guilty conscience. And he's trying to figure out if somebody behind the scenes told Jeter something, because obviously he has connections to the organization. They will tell Jeter stuff that they probably wouldn't normally talk about. But isn't that interesting? That's the most interesting. It's the most interesting thing about this. Now, your host likes talking about this stuff. This is fun stuff to talk about, especially when you got nothing else. Got nothing else right now to talk about with the playoffs going on. But the Yankees are not going to change the things that they've been doing. They're not going to bring in. They're not going to have like a change of philosophy. I don't know what the problem is. It's not my problem. As a Met fan, I have my own problems here with this team in Queens. Without the lack of killer instinct. Yankees have that right now too. They have that from the top, from the very top. This killer instinct from the top is not there. Hal Steinbrenner is not his father. With the Mets, it's a little bit different. With the Mets have that with the ownership. The problem is underneath that. But I'm going to talk about that in this video. But Cashman calling Jeter to find out what he knows tells you that there is talk within the organization. Even though Jeter said, I don't know anything. Well, the fact that Cashman called him right away tells you something. And there are a lot of differences with A-Rod and Cashman and Jeter and Cashman. So there is a history here with Cashman, a negative history that Cashman has with them, specifically at the end of their careers with the Yankees. But you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2. And I'll see you later. Mets have a big farm system, the best farm system according to all reports in baseball. They have a lot of pitching. They have a lot of infield help. They have a lot of catching help. Those are the things that the Mets are very strong in terms of their farm system. And their pitching has taken a major step. We saw 3 young guys pitching late August and September. Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, and Brandon Sproat. McLean is not going to go anywhere. I think the Mets view him as a part of this future. Jonah Tong, I think they'll move. They have to. Brandon Sproat, I think they'll move. They have to. And there are other players that the Mets have in their farm that are pitchers, like Will Watson, Jonathan Santucci, and a few others that the Mets would be very willing to move. And the Mets have infielders galore. They have a plethora of infielders. They can move Mark Vientos. They can move Brett Beatty. They have so much depth on the infield that they could really help the Tigers or any team load up. And the Mets would not miss a beat. I would mention that Derek Jeter traded Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees. And that is when all the trouble for the Yankees in terms of construction of their roster really began. That's when all the problems started, the way the Yankees are run as a team. Jeter contributed to that by getting rid of Stanton. On Thursday, Cashman went on WFAN radio to respond to the pointed words from the 2 franchise legends, especially those from Jeter, about the source of the Yankees' in-game decisions. The club's longtime general manager was adamant that he has never had direct influence on starting lineups or in-game choices, no matter who has been the Yankees' manager. Now, prior to Aaron Boone being the manager, Joe Girardi was the manager. And he was, I guess, can be described as stiff, not a big personality, just all about baseball. It could be described as very old school as a manager. And they got rid of him, which made no sense. He had done an excellent job with the Yankees. He got into the ALCS with a young team in 2017, and then they fired him because they were tired of his sort of being grumpy and not being so friendly, outside the lines. They kind of got tired of his act, I guess. But people miss him in a big way. Cashman calling Jeter to find out what he knows tells you that there is talk within the organization. Even though Jeter said, I don't know anything. Well, the fact that Cashman called him right away tells you something. And there are a lot of differences with A-Rod and Cashman and Jeter and Cashman, you know. So there is a history here with Cashman, a negative history that Cashman has with them, but specifically at the end of their careers with the Yankees. But you let me know what you think about this video. And of course, now welcome back to the Prospect Hour. We talk about Mets prospects, and I got a whole bunch of stuff by the Mets and the prospects because there's the Arizona Fall League going on, and quite a few Mets prospects are doing really well, like Nick Morabito, and of course in this video, Mets catching prospect / first base prospect / outfield prospect Chris Suaro. And he's a guy to keep an eye on because he is a high-energy player. From what I've seen of videos of him and just reading different things. But the MLB put this article out. Mets prospect Suaro keeps momentum going in the Fall League. Chris Suaro looked at the starting probables ahead of Saturday's Fall League contest so that Phillies prospect Alberson Castellano was slated to be on the mound and knew one thing: it was time to lock in. The two shared some friendly banter before the game, but it was Suaro with the last laugh after he slugged a 2-run homer for Scottsdale during its 11-4 win over Surprise a Goodyear ballpark. The Suaro-Castellano showdowns officially date back to May 2024 when the two faced off at High A. They've met on many different diamonds since then. One thing has held true: the Mets' number 15 prospect has found the 6'3" right-hander tremendously difficult to hit, going a combined 0 for 6 in their minor league journey across 2 levels. It looked their first Fall League encounter would go the same way. Suaro got tied up on an inside heater during the first inning and then flailed on a low breaking ball. Quote, I kind of figured after those 2 ugly swings that he's probably going to come back with it, says Suaro. Now, Suaro's from the Bronx. So he's from New York. Come back with the breaking stuff he did. Suaro exited stage left at 99.9 miles per hour off the bat for his second Fall League homer. After a regular season in which the 21-year-old swatted 16 home runs and posted a 141 WRC plus during his time with High A Brooklyn and Double A Binghamton. That momentum has carried over to Arizona. Through 5 games, Suaro has collected 7 RBIs and posted a 967 OPS. And third among all catchers on the circuit. He's got a chance to make the majors at some point. Maybe next year. But he is a prospect, and like I said, high-energy guy. One of Suaro's defining characteristics is his defensive flexibility. He's already made strides in left field at first base and vitally catcher. Well, he joked on Fall League Media Day that I'll play shortstop if they put me in at shortstop. The organization is undoubtedly intrigued by his development as his athleticism and in-game aptitude make him uniquely suited for the position. He's also fully bilingual, having been born in the Bronx before moving to the Dominican Republic as a teenager, where he signed in March of 2022 for just $10,000. So he's a very quick prospect coming up. If Suaro needs any insight on what it's like to put on the catcher's gear and get down in the SWAT in Queens, looks no further than his own dugout during the Fall League. Scottsdale manager Rene Rivera spent parts of 4 seasons with the Mets from 2016 to 2017 and 19 to 20 before embarking on a managerial career that has also featured a stop in the MLB Draft League. Quote, it's truly a blessing to have a guy like that, a veteran, 13 years in the big leagues. Not everybody does that. He was a good catcher, Rivera. He's been helping me a lot behind the plate. We've just been working the last couple of days. We've been getting in the lab. He's been trying to help me out with a couple of things, made a couple of tweaks, and just kind of passing down what he knows to me. It's a true blessing to have him there. Over the past few years, the Mets have been aggressive in sending many prospects they believe to be part of their imminent future to the Fall League. Jeff Williams and Drew Gilbert headlined the 2024 group, which even include Jeff McNeil for a few games, while Ken Parada and Brett Beatty spent time in the desert during their time as top 100 prospects as well. So despite playing 115 regular season games plus 5 more during a Double-A Eastern League title run, when the Mets broached the Fall League as a possibility, Suaro jumped at the chance to potentially add another ring to his growing collection in 2025. High A Brooklyn, they were champions. Double A Binghamton, they were champions. But he won the championship with Binghamton. And AFL Scottsdale Scorpions still to be written. The team is filled with a bunch of dogs. I feel like we just feed off everybody. Suarez said it makes you a better ball player even without you realizing it. Just seeing the other prospects, a lot of good ball players. It brings the best out of you. It's a true blessing to be here. He, like I said, he's got a chance to be a good prospect. He's already 15, but as you know, the Mets had the best farm system in baseball, according to a lot of reports. And he's one of these guys the Mets could have him here at the end of next year or year after that, or they could trade him, put him in a package. He's got a lot of value. He really does. And the fact that he can play behind the plate, he can play first, he can play the outfield, very athletic, he has some speed, he's got some power, he can do a lot of different things. He's got a lot of value. And that's what teams are looking for. Players that have a lot of value. And he's one of them. He will be a major leaguer. I don't believe that for no reason. There'd be no reason why he won't be a major leaguer very soon. Well, thank you for watching this video. Of course, please subscribe to Prospect Hut, and I'll see you later. Now, welcome back to the Prospect Hut, and hopefully you like this video. This is a channel for Mets prospects. You need to hit that subscribe button. And, of course, watch the entirety of this video and like this video. And, again, we're talking about the Arizona Fall League from SI. Mets prospects continue stellar start in the Arizona Fall League. Well, it's funny you should mention that. New York Mets minor leaguers, Nick Morabito and Chris Suarez, have looked fantastic to start the fall ball season. See what happens. I've been seeing a lot of highlights of them in particular. They're doing a really good job. They've had a good season, both of them. With the start of the Arizona Fall League season, the Mets still have a strong crop of minor league talent competing through the month of October and into November. 2 weeks, and the Scottsdale Scorpions have seen massive contributions from Mets prospects Nick Morabito and Chris Suarez, who are both coming off strong finishes to their 2025 minor league campaigns. Morabito's impressive stretch comes at a pivotal time as the 22-year-old outfielder is Rule 5 eligible this offseason, but is making a case for the Mets to protect him on the 40-man roster. That's going to be interesting because he will get picked up, I think. Morabito got going early in Sunday's game against the surprise Seguros. Lacing single up the middle from the Leo spot in the bottom of the first inning. Found the base hit. The club's number 16th overall prospect stole both second and third before coming home to score the game's first run on a throwing error. I would mention, I expect the New York Mets' overall age to go down. I don't expect them to be as old as they were this year. I expect the team to be much younger, specifically on the position side. Nick Morabito and Chris Suarez off to strong starts in the NFL. Scottsdale exploded for 12 runs in the second inning. Morabito was right in the middle of that rally, getting on base twice with a walk and another base hit up the middle. He finished the game 2 for 4 with a walk and 2 runs while playing all 7 innings in center field before play was suspended due to a fire alarm. Oh, great. Is it because these guys are so hot? Yeah. Morabito's 2 steals in the first bring him up to 6 on 7 attempts so far this fall. The speedster stole 49 bases on 60 attempts in Double-A this season and had 59 on 74 attempts in 2024. Just huge numbers. In 6 games this fall, Morabito's hitting .391 with a double, triple, 2 RBIs, and 6 stolen bases. The production is far from an anomaly as he's coming off a stellar year of the Binghamton Rome Ponies where he hit .273 in 118 games. Before that, Morabito had back-to-back seasons with a batting average above 300 and an on-base percentage above 400. He's not a big power hitter, just so you know. He's more of a table setter. Suarez, the club's number 15th overall prospect, was given the night off on Sunday, but has also extended his impressive end to the regular season into the AFL. 21-year-old is hitting .286 with 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and 2 steals in 5 games, while splitting time between catcher, first, and left, and he's got a .619 slugging percentage. Like Morabito, Suarez is a natural base runner and had the most steals of any catcher in the minor leagues in 25, with 35. This athleticism has also allowed the Mets to try Suarez at multiple positions to get his bat in the lineup more often. The Bronx native has good power, which he put on display on September, launching 2 homers in his 5 postseason games, including a 2-run shot in the Rome Ponies championship clinching victory. Suarez slashed .233 of 16 homers in 115 games, between high A and double A this past year and has proved to be a valuable prospect with tremendous versatility and speed to go with his developing bat. Very interesting. That's a big future. Morbido and Suarez's strong showings to start the AFL season is a great sign for the Mets' play development system, as two guys who started rookie ball back in 22 have grown into legit top prospects. But Morbido's continued success will force a key decision whether the young outfielder will have a spot on the 40-man roster or be exposed to the Rule 5 draft. It could likely prove to be an easy one, as the Mets have a need in center field that likely won't be filled externally, since top prospect Carson Benz and Jet Williams are close to their big league rivals. But with Benz expect a long-term solution in center, Morbido could be a valuable trade piece for Dave Stearns, who will almost certainly look to make a few significant moves this offseason. Well, we'll see, but I expect some of the Met prospects to get moved this offseason. And that being said, they mentioned this in this article. That being said, this could all change if the Mets choose to make a strong push with Detroit ace Tariq Skubal, who is expected to be made available this offseason. Also mentioned Freddie Peralta as well, the Brewers. According to reports, Nolan claims the only piece that the front office would not consider moving to acquire him, meaning Benz and Williams could be out of the equation, and Morbido will have a more defined role moving forward. Oh, he could be gone. If he's the guy that's on the bubble, he could get moved. Suarez could get moved. Anybody can get moved at this rate. Everything is up for grabs at the Mets right now. Have to build a better, tougher team to withstand the pressure of September. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, please subscribe to Prospect Hut, and I'll see you later. Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, the Hunter. Welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2, and hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. So one of the big teams that's going to be very active, I would think, is the Detroit Tigers. They have a major decision to make with their ace Tariq Skubal. They offered him last offseason, supposedly, 4 years, $100 million, and that was kind of rejected by Scott Boras' client and Scott Boras. So the fact that this got out is because Scott Boras let his biographer, John Heyman, get that information out to us. And the fact that the front office could not really answer whether they were going to resign Skubal to a major contract before next year means that he's going to get moved. And the Tigers are going to need to do a better job with their team. They made the postseason the last 2 years. They had a big manager. They need to pump up their game a little bit. I don't think they'll be signing any big free agents, but let's see what this article has to say. SI, Tigers projected to be one of MLB's most active teams this offseason. Will the Detroit Tigers have an active offseason? Well, let's find out. Let's find out, shall we? As you know, they lost in the first round, the wild card, to the Guardians. They beat the Guardians, I'm all right. They played the Blue Jays? I don't remember now. They played the Blue Jays. But they struggled down the stretch. Didn't hit as well as they needed to. The pitching besides Skubal was not great. While getting something long-term worked out, the likely back-to-back AL Cy Young Award winner is going to be at the top of anyone's list when it comes to the organization's to-do list this winter. There are still other areas on this roster that needs to be upgraded to take the next step. Here's something interesting. The Tigers seem ready to spend, but I don't think they're ready to spend on Skubal. Coming off an offseason where they weren't active after they were eliminated by the Guardians in Game 5 of the ALDS in 2024, it's time for President of Baseball Operations Scott Harris to make some noise. Whether or not that actually will happen isn't clear, but Kerry Miller of the Bleacher Report has commented that the Tigers will be one of the busiest clubs across Major League Baseball this offseason, since he's added them to his list of 9 teams he believes will be the most active. This year was already clear evidence they're at least willing to consider getting back to spend like they did from 2007 to 2017. The Tigers ended last season with $107.7 million competitive balance in tax payroll, but their estimated sum for 2025 was $171.6. That increase of $67 million was the most of any team, but it was really the biggest percentage increase. Detroit going up by 62.1%, while no other team increased spending by more than 35%, he wrote. The fact that the payroll has increased in that way is something that had to be a welcome thing for the fan base. But the money should be invested correctly by making smart, long-term commitments to difference makers who help them win championships for years to come. Just win one championship. You know, that's a lot of pressure on the Rice years to come. Third base, more high-end starting arms and bullpen pieces immediately come to mind as target areas. And there are plenty of options available for the Tigers this winter as they try to assemble a roster that can get them to the next level. Detroit has done a good job getting the franchise to this point after a prolonged rebuilding phase, but they need to capitalize on it by being aggressive this off-season. Now let's go and look at their needs. They need a third base. Well, the Mets have a few guys that would be interesting to them. Brett Baty's top of that list. Marvientos, Ronnie Mauricio, Jacob Reamer. More high-end starting arms. Jonah Tong, Brandon Sprout, and bullpen pieces. The Mets have Dylan Ross. They can give them Ryan Lambert. They could consider giving them possibly Clay Holmes as a starter or as a reliever. They could move him. I would be interested to see what kind of value Clay Holmes has, based on the fact that he can pitch out of the bullpen. He could be a closer for a team. He could be a starter for a team. This should not be close-minded with anything that's going on here. Okay. Can't be at this point. Just to use the Mets as an example. But the Mets have some things here that I think would be that they would be very interested. The Tigers would be. The Cubs certainly would be interested in a big pitcher like this guy, you know. And they have some pieces here as well. But you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, I'll have more stuff on the Tigers and everybody else. And, of course, I need you to hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you think about this video, and I'll see you later. Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, the Hut, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. We're back here talking about the Mets. And I'm just going to go over some articles. We go over a lot of articles here. Try to agree with them, disagree with them. We can. And they ranked on SNY the Mets' top priorities for the 2025-26 MLB offseason. Mets have to identify players that have toughness, players that have reputations of being tough late in the game, tough late in the season. The one thing that we can all agree on is that the New York Mets do not have any toughness. They don't have that killer instinct. The killer instinct was taken out of this organization many, many decades ago. And they always are drafting nice guys, always bringing in nice guys. Again, I'll say this again. It's an old line, but nice guys finish last. And the New York Mets have been full of nice guys, and they need to be a little bit meaner, a hell of a lot meaner if they're going to win a championship. And that's got to be the number one intangible thing that they must look at. They have to figure out who has that and who doesn't have that. They also have to find a guy and guys that can make the other players better. That's even tougher than finding the intangible of toughness. But let's go through this ranking. That should be the number one thing. Ranking Mets' top priorities. The offseason, Dave Stearns could shake things up. No, he should shake things up. This is not a coulda, woulda, shoulda. This is a should. Mets haven't had any boring off seasons lately. It's true. After the 22 team won 101 games but fell short in the wildcard series, Justin Verlander was added to the mix when Jacob deGrom left for the Rangers. But the Mets struggled, resulting in a midseason sell-off. Following the 23 season, the Mets, with the newly hired Dave Stearns to helm, a strong push for Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and wound up adding Shoman Naya, Luis Severino, and J.D. Martinez, among others. After the 2024 team made an inspiring run to the NLCS, the Mets went all in, signing Juan Soto, the biggest deal in the history of North American sports, re-signing Pete Alonso, inking Clay Holmes, and re-signing Manaea. But like the 23 team, the 25 Mets disappointed. Sucking sons of bitches, terrible. Here's what New York's biggest priority should be. Determine the plan for the kids. Heading into 2026, it's fair to believe that Nolan McLean is locked in as a member of the rotation. After coming up in August, McLean was largely dominant as he flashed some of the nastiest stuff in the majors. Just as impressive was McLean's poise and moxie. I would mention, you got to be very careful with him because he's just learning how to pitch on a regular basis. He did not start pitching regularly until last July or something like that, when he gave up being a hitter and a third baseman and DH. They have to be very careful with him. So that's one of the main things that they must be doing this offseason to address that, as getting an ace in here to take pressure off of him. Because you could feel as we got down to the last week or so that the pressure had built up a lot. What isn't clear is what the plan is for Brandon Sproat and Jonah Tong. It would make sense for Tong to begin 2026 back in AAA, where he continued to hone his skills after making just 2 starts. Now, he didn't pitch that great. I wasn't all that impressed with him. Like I've been saying, he needs to get more experience at the minor league level. He needs to get some experience going up against semi-regular major league players. And to be honest with you, there was an immaturity that I didn't really care for, that he needs to grow up a little bit. As far as Sproat, was impressive, but even in his 4 major league starts, it would be a bit of a surprise if he enters spring training with anything guaranteed. He doesn't have a guarantee. He was okay at times. But either one of them could get moved. Either one of them could get traded for a big pitcher. Freddie Peralta's probably going to be made available. School's probably going to get moved, or at least made available. Let's have to get a number 1 starter in here. I'd rather have Skubal than Peralta, because Skubal is he's the top of the totem pole, is the top of the pyramid guy. In addition to the starting pitching situations, the presence of infielder outfielder Jed Williams and center fielder Carson Benj. Both players could be difference makers for the Mets as early as the first half of 26, which is something that needs to be taken into consideration when making offseason moves. I would move Jed Williams if I have to get Skubal. Carson Benj is a different story because the Mets need center field. They don't have a center fielder. And they don't have a lot of depth in terms of their outfield. They have a lot of depth in the infield, a lot of depth behind the plate, and obviously a lot of depth with their pitching, but very little depth in the outfield. So I'd rather not move him. I also would mention Ryan Clifford as a player that could affect the Mets next year and beyond, or he could get moved in a trade. Rebuild the bullpen. Let's see who we have here. Edwin Diaz, Ryan Helsley, no thanks. Tyler Rogers, no thanks. Gregory Soto, hell no. And Ryan Stanek, F off. F off. Are all free agents. And Reed Garrett likely missing the entire 26 season due to Tommy John surgery. Mets are going to have lots of work to do when it comes to assembling the bullpen. The number 1 guy the Mets will have, and the only guy in the Mets bullpen right now, is Brooks Raley. He's the only guy right now. A.J. Minter is up for question mark. They mentioned Drew Smith. Can we move on from him? But I don't want to see Drew Smith ever again. The media loves Drew Smith. I don't understand it. Edwin Diaz is going to be a free agent. He's going to be asking for a lot of money. Is David Stearns going to be able to re-sign him? And if so, does he have the stomach to spend that kind of money? I don't know. I would also mention the Mets have Clay Holmes. And Clay Holmes could go into that bullpen and be a closer with the Mets if they have to. I don't really want to do that. But that is an option the Mets could do for next year. He's on a contract year because he's going to be free agent after next year. It's possible New York could view hard-throwing prospect Dylan Ross as a serious option for the 26th bullpen, but he's going to have to cut down on his free passes after walking 6 2/3 innings per 9. That's a high number. Free agent relievers who could make sense include Robert Suarez and Emilio Pagan. Now, again, do you want Edwin Diaz back here? He could be an up-and-down guy, but we know he can handle it emotionally here. Boston shake up the offense while improving the defense. This might be the trickiest thing to do. With the presence of Soto, Lindor, and Nimmo, the Mets are locked in at 3 of 8 defensive positions. In the case of Soto and Lindor, is that a bad thing to be locked in? I can see Soto going into left field in the future. Nimmo should go up DH. That way he's off his feet. As far as Nimmo, while he is still a productive offensive player, he's taken a step back in the last 2 seasons. And his defense in left was below average 25. Put him as a DH. That's it. Francisco Alvarez should be back behind the plate. And the arrival of Williams into our bench means the Mets should be adding a long-term answer. Should be adding a long-term answer in center field. So if Alonso returns, he's placed to upgrade in the defense while shaking the offense will be at third base or second. Perhaps that means signing Alex Bregman and sliding Brett Beatty to second. Maybe it means they pursue Bo Bichette if he's willing to switch positions from shortstop. Purely on the offensive side of things, the Mets could also go big at DH with free agent Kyle Schwarber, the huge name out there. Now, finally, they mentioned a rotation starter. That is the number one thing they need to do to add on. They have to get rid of some of these people here that have been here a long time. But that's something the Mets need to do, is bring in a starter, a big starter. Mets don't need a true ace. No, they need an ace. But they need someone who can be, I'm sorry, I disagree with the writer. Mets need an ace. There's Framber Valdez, who will be 32 years old next season, will be seeking a huge deal. He's an ace. There's Michael King, who has ace-level stuff, but he can't stay healthy. I don't do that. Then there's Ranger Suarez, who, although he's performed very well, has lots of hits, is not a big strikeout guy, has never done more than 158 innings in a season. Their first phone call should be to the Tigers, who could possibly make Terry Skubal available with him 1 year from free agency. If the Mets can't pry him away, the Marlins seem likely to trade Sandy Alcantara, who was dominant down the stretch after regaining his form following Tommy John surgery. And the Twins could dangle Joe Ryan, who, like Alcantara, has 2 years of team control remaining. The guy I should mention is Freddie Peralta, too, of the Brewers, but he's not nearly as good as Skubal. Skubal is the top of the totem pole. He's a big-time starter, and he'll pitch big in a big spot. He's about as good as it gets. The only thing is you'll have to probably spend $400 million on him. Does David Stearns have the stomach to do that for a pitcher? He's 28 years old. He's getting the beginning of his, kind of in the beginning of his prime. The first 4 years of the contracts, barring health or injury, that's going to be huge. If the Mets want to be a big team, they have to have a big starter at the top of the rotation. Okay? None of this mamby-pamby, bringing in all these projects. That stuff, that shit is over with. Get a true ace. The article says they don't necessarily need to bring in a true ace. Bullshit. Let me read this again. Mets don't need a true ace. Bullshit. They need an ace. But they need someone who can be trusted. I'm sorry. They need an ace. Pure and simple. Aside from Nolan McLean, everybody should be up for grabs to be moved. That includes David Peterson should get moved, Brett Beatty. They should all could get on trade for this guy. As simple as that. And the Mets had the talent to do it. They have a big farm system. They have the best farm system. This is why you have a farm. It's not just so they can play here in the majors with the Mets, but also they could go in a trade. Well, you let me know what you think about this video, and of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut, and I'll see you later. Hi everybody, this is the Prospect Hut, and of course, this is a channel dedicated for Mets prospects. So we're talking about a bunch of Mets prospects here, so you need to hit the subscribe button, and of course, watch the entirety of this video. It's from MLB.com. As you know, the Mets had a terrible season, terrible finish to that season. But the one thing they did not have a bad season with is their minor league system. Their minor league system had a great year. Two of the teams in the minor leagues won championships. Met pitching graduated to the majors. 3 big prospects, and we have other prospects on the cusp of making the majors. This MLB.com article talks about that. Number 2 prospect, Benj, among young talent ready to impact the Mets in 2026. Not many minor leaguers did more to establish themselves in 2025 than Carson Benj. Following a solid start to the season at High A Brooklyn, Benj earned a promotion to Double A Binghamton and proceeded to go bananas, crazy. Over 32 games there, the 2024 first-round draft pick hit .317 with 8 homers, prompting the Mets to bump him through further up the ladder to AAA Syracuse. That's where Benj ended his summer. I mean, he struggled and he got hurt, I guess, a little bit. Through the course of the season, he's a guy that really found his stride. Mets Vice President of Player Development, Andy Green, said. Benj is an interesting player. He's a 2-way player. Just 22, Benj must prove more adept at AAA before the Mets will consider calling him up, meaning he's not likely to be an opening day option. But the team does figure to build its 2025 roster with Benj in mind. Mets officials may shy away from acquiring a center fielder on a long-term deal, knowing Benj could be ready for by mid-season. If all goes to plan, Benj could eventually give the Mets sort of long-term center field option they have sought for years. That's a problem. Center field's a major problem. They need to find a major league center field. I'm sorry. They can't be waiting for this kid to come up. They gotta get a major league center fielder. Relatedly, another recent draftee who could debut next year is number 3 prospect Jett Williams. Williams' production dipped after a late season promotion to Syracuse, but he should begin 26 at that level since the Mets took him in the first round in 2022. Williams has shown a consistent ability to reach base and cause havoc once he gets there. Now in 2023, he had over 100 walks, which was the most by a Mets minor leaguer since David Wright did and had in 2002. So it's a long time, over 20 years. Mets team officials remain excited for his future, which could be at second base. The bench manages the lockdown center, and Francisco Lindor remains entrenched at shortstop. There's going to be a lot of moves. The Mets have a lot of moves to make on their infield, quite frankly. Next up is Jonah Tong. Don't judge Tong based on his 5 largely forgettable starts over the season's final month. Before that, Tong did enough to earn the Mets Organizational Pitcher of the Year award, producing a 1.43 ERA over 22 starts in the upper minors. Barring an exceptional spring, there's a decent chance Tong will start next season back at AAA. But he's now just a short run of success away from potentially sticking in the majors for good. Beyond Tong is another wave of pitching prospects who could make noise in 2026. Will Watson at number 11, Jack Weninger at number 13, Jonathan Santucci at 14, and Zach Thornton at 23 all reached AA this year, giving them the chance to follow the path Tong and McLean blazed this season. We'll be shocked to see any of those 4 in the majors at some point late next year. But we'll see. And finally, I guess, this is Ryan Lambert. That's 22 best prospects. Since the day the Mets drafted him in the 8th round in 2024, Lambert has profiled as a type of hard-throwing reliever who could rise rapidly to the majors. This season, the right-hander did nothing to complicate his path, producing a 1.62 ERA split between 2 levels. His 14.6 strikeouts per 9 innings was 5th highest of any minor leaguer to throw at least 50 innings. If things continue to go well for Lambert, he could join Jonathan Pintaro and Dylan Ross, the potential homegrown bullpen option, something the relief corps badly needs. Pintaro briefly debuted earlier this year. Ross came up during the season's final weekend, but never appeared in a game. This time around, both should be in the mix from the start of spring training. These guys have to do a better job throwing strikes. The one thing about Dylan Ross is he's the guy that throws very hard, but he has to throw strikes. And the Mets need to build that bullpen from within. The best teams usually do that. It's difficult to import bullpen pieces, to be honest with you. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, please subscribe to the Prospect Hut, and I'll see you later. Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button as we wait for the World Series. It's going to be a very interesting World Series. Most interesting thing about it is that Don Mattingly will get to make an appearance as a coach. Long time coming, but we're happy for him. World Series will be, I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out, to be honest with you. The Blue Jays, now, somebody wrote to me on the Baseball Hut saying that I don't know what I'm talking about because they said the Blue Jays were a fraud. Look, nobody thought the Blue Jays would be in the World Series, let alone win the division and play as well as they have. Nobody thought that. Not one person thought that. Because they finished in last year. But good for them. Let's talk about the Phillies in this video. This is why you're here. The Philadelphia Phillies have massive problems because they may have taken this team as far as they could take it, and they didn't win. Went to the World Series 2 years ago, and they didn't win the World Series. They had it right there. They were up, I guess, they had it up 3-2. They had it. And their bullpen blew it, and it doesn't seem like this particular group of Phillies is going to be able to carry it over the finish line. And I guess they're pointing fingers down there in Citizens Bank Park. And Dave Dombrowski said something rather interesting about Bryce Harper. I got a couple of things, and I also got a response that came out from Scott Boras, his agent. This is from Balls Out of Here. Dave Dombrowski says the quiet part out loud about Bryce Harper. This wasn't the smartest comment to make about the face of the Phillies, no. But I don't think he signed him, by the way. He didn't sign him. So he doesn't have any kind of loyalty towards him. Philadelphia Phillies didn't win the World Series in 2025. Teams had high expectations since reaching the World Series in 2022. That's what I meant to say, but has failed to return. The organization has been committed to bring the championship back to the city of brotherly love, thanks in large part to having an owner determined to win. They did have a 3-2 lead against the Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks beat them 2 years ago, which I meant to say. The core group hasn't gotten the job done, and of course last year the Mets beat them. And 2025 may have been the final chance. Several key players set to hit free agency and others and trade rumors. JT Realmuto's probably going to be gone. Moving on. Castellanos is probably going to get released or moved or something. I know they're not too happy with him. Schwarber might be gone. Article continues, the Phillies will continue to field a competitive team as long as Bryce Harper is on the contract, but his better days may be behind him. Did Dave Dombrowski question Bryce Harper's elite stats? Well, let's see what he had to say. Phillies president of baseball operations Dave Dombrowski didn't shy away from sharing his thoughts about the face of the franchise during his end-of-season press conference on Thursday. According to MLB.com's Todd Zolecki from last week, he's still a quality player, Dombrowski said about Harper's down year. Per Zolecki, he's still an all-star caliber player. He didn't have an elite season like has had in the past. And I guess we only find out if he becomes elite or if he continues to be good. I think he's up for the Gold Glove this year. He's a very good first baseman. After hitting .294 across the previous 4 seasons, in which he was selected to 2 All-Star games and named the 2021 NL MVP, Harper had a .261 batting average in 25, his lowest since the 2019 season. The Phillies' first baseman finished the season with 27 homers, 75 RBIs, and .844 OPS. The players weren't much better for Harper, who hit .200 with just 1 extra base hit and no RBIs in the NLDS loss to the Dodgers. It was uncharacteristic after he had hit .325 across the previous 3 playoffs, which included being named the 2022 NLCS MVP. Can he rise to the next level again, Dombrowski asked. Questioning Harper's elite stats, I don't really know that answer. He's the one that will dictate that more than anything else. Oh boy. Harper has been in the spotlight since he was a teenager before being drafted by the Washington Nationals first overall in the 2010 MLB draft. He's a 2-time MVP, 8-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger, and was the 2012 National League Rookie of the Year. Despite being a generational talent, future Hall of Famer, Dombrowski is skeptical about Harper's future as one of the top players in baseball. Harper's on the contract through 2031 and turned 33 years old on Thursday, making Dombrowski's remarks about his star player that much more questionable. Harper didn't have the season the baseball world is accustomed to seeing from him, but there aren't any reason to believe that he can't bounce back. Well, bounce back or not, he responded, or his agent responded. If the agent responded, that means in all likelihood, this is how Harper feels. This is from Forbes. The headline, Bryce Harper's agent, Scott Boras, claps back at Dave Dombrowski. Now let me see if I can read this because it doesn't seem like Forbes wants me to read it. I'm going to read it. Do my best. But in the meanwhile, please, of course, subscribe. Well, that didn't take long. Bryce Harper's super agent has clapped back. Scott Boras, who negotiated many of MLB's biggest contracts, including Harper's Phillies deal in 2019, responded to Dave Dombrowski's stunning comments that Harper may no longer be elite. But I guess we only find out if he becomes elite or if he continues to be good. Boras' response came via an exclusive piece by sports writer Christian Redd. I agree that Harper missed time due to injury and that his volume was down, but other than that, Bryce is performing at an elite level on a number of characteristics that we keep track of. It should be noted that Dombrowski highlighted Harper's not-so-elite year without mentioning a nagging wrist injury that put him on the injured list for 23 days. Dombrowski's comments also whipped around Philly sports talk radio and social media and cited unhinged theories that he's trying to trade Harper with 6 years remaining on his 13-year, $330 million deal. I don't think Dave or Philly's majority owner, John Middleton, or anybody is contemplating Bryce Harper not being a Philly for the rest of his career. Boris made sure to point out how elite Harper still is, saying that his award 3.2 in 25 was better than it was in the last 4 years, or less better than it was in 4 other seasons, 2016, 2018, 2020, and 2022. Boris also pointed out that Harper was one of only 10 qualified hitters who had at least a 355 on-base percentage and 485 slugging percentage. The others are Shohei Ohtani, he's in the World Series, Kyle Schwarber, his teammate, Juan Soto, who's a Met, Cal Raleigh, who hit 60 home runs this year, Aaron Judge, Yankees, Jose Ramirez, Freddie Freeman, George Springer, and Ketel Marte. But truth be told, Harper's final metrics showed a downturn in several categories. His 844 OPS was his lowest since 2016. And his 261 batting average was his worst since 2019. He also only hit 27 homers, but it was clear that his injured wrist sapped his production for a stretch. When you look into expected baseball stats, Harper's pretty much on par with his career. He's surrounded by Tucker, Tatis, Bobby Wood Jr., and Devers. His barrel rate, hard hit rate, exit velocity are all on top of MLB. His barrel rate is the same as Vladdy Jr. and Bobby Wood Jr. His exit velocity is the same as Cal Riley's and Julio Rodriguez's. But I'll get that. Defensively, Harper has become a Gold Glove caliber first baseman after shifting from the outfield following a Tommy John surgery in November 2022. But the thing is, folks, is that a lot is expected of Harper. He's the player that they built their team around. And he is 33 years old. And steroids aren't supposed to be in the game anymore. And amphetamines aren't in the game, supposedly, for the players to take. So 33 is probably older than it was, say, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, 33 was like 23. He's at the back end of his prime. It's just natural to sort of question whether the player has, and he's a hard-nosed player. He plays very hard. So this is not a player, but he does post. He does play every day. He just had this bad, the wrist injuries past year and a couple of years ago with the elbow injury that he had. But aside from that, he plays all the time, and he has a lot of innings under him. But he's been playing first. He's a pretty good first baseman. I don't think they want to trade him. I just think that maybe this might be motivation. This might be more of a motivational thing at Harper. Who knows? Well, you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut, too. I'll see you later. Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. We have a major gambling scandal in this country right now. And it just popped up over the last hour or two. This is within the NBA. And why this is important, because this is going to happen in other sports. And it's going to involve YouTubers as well. I have no doubt, as I do this video, excuse me, that YouTubers are going to be involved. Now, the host is not going to be involved with that because I don't promote any kind of gambling, betting, anything. So I can guarantee it's, especially with this new Justice Department involved, they are not fooling around with any of these criminals. This is all criminal activity. That's why all these guys got arrested today. 34 NBA employees got arrested today in 11 different states. Oh, let me say that again. 34 individuals that have worked for the NBA or working for the NBA were arrested in 11 states. One including Chauncey Billups, who was a Hall of Fame coach. We have players being arrested. It's just crazy. And, of course, ESPN basically, sweeping it under the rug to a certain degree while they're talking about it. They had the press conference with the FBI Director, Cashman, who I heard understands could be in trouble because justice is not moving as swiftly as Trump would want it. But justice has hit very quickly when it comes to the NBA, and I have a couple of articles from Outkick. They have a pretty good handle on this. First up, NBA's Billups and Rozier arrested in an FBI probe involving, let's get this, alleged prop bets, poker rings, and the mob ties. Yes, the Italian mob from New York. three crime families in New York. Officials detailed the cheating allegations and pending charges in a press conference. Basketball Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and former player and coach Damon Jones were among more than 30 individuals arrested Thursday morning and indicted in a sweeping criminal investigation into alleged illegal gambling and sports rigging that also involved five of the mafia families. Don't ever go against the family. Baseball hunt. The charges were unveiled at a news conference in Brooklyn where FBI Director Cash Patel and representatives from the Department of Justice and New York Police Department laid out details of an operation that spanned 11 states, resulted in 34 arrests, and involved tens of millions of dollars. The FBI director said the historic fraud included multiple NBA players and coaches who allegedly took advantage of their own positions of power to rig gambling systems for their own benefit, eventually funneling money to the La Cosa Nostra, enriching some of the most notorious criminal networks in the world. This is the Italian Mafia. This is the Godfather, the real Godfathers that we know in the movies and in literature. Billups, the current coach of the Portland Trailblazers, who was inducted to the Hall of Fame last year, and Jones allegedly participated in a scheme involving rigged illegal poker games. This involved like X-ray specs, X-rays on the table, just crazy stuff. They faced charges of wire fraud conspiracy and money laundering conspiracy. Federal authorities launched an investigation dubbed Operation Zen Diagram into a nationwide gambling ring allegedly involving members of the Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese, and Genovese families. Oh my God. Which allegedly defrauded victims out of millions of dollars. Let's say this again. The Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese, and Genovese families. The Gambinos is, of course, the name of the family that John Gotti ran. That was his family. The FBI, you didn't think they were still around, but they're still around. The FBI said the proceeds were often converted into cryptocurrency to avoid being detected by law enforcement. Officials stated the poker games involved cheating devices such as rigged shuffling machines as well as X-ray machines that could read face-down cards on the table. Operation Zen Diagram overlapped with a separate investigation dubbed Nothing But Bet, involving a probe into fixed NCAA basketball games. Rozier's arrest is tied to gambling involving NBA games during which he allegedly manipulated his statistics so co-conspirators could win prop bets. During a Thursday press conference, New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch presented one alleged instance involving Rozier from March 23, 2023, when he was a member of the Charlotte Hornets. Rozier let others close to him know that he planned to leave the game early for supposed injury. Using that information, members of the group placed more than $200,000 in wagers on his under statistic, Tisch alleged. Wow. Crazy. Rozier exited the game after just 9 minutes, and those bets paid out, generating tens of thousands of dollars in profits. The proceeds were later delivered to his home, where the group counted their cash. Wow. Rozier and 5 other defendants are facing charges of conspiracy to commit bank and wire fraud. Jones, along with his alleged involvement in the separate poker scheme case, was also indicted as part of the sports rigging investigation. He's alleged to have shared inside nonprofit information to help others place fraudulent bets. It's crazy. This is insane. Now, of course, please like this video and hit the subscribe button. Bills was on the bench coaching for the Trailblazers during that 114 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves on Wednesday night in Portland. Rozier did not play for the Heat during the 125-121 loss to the Orlando Magic on Wednesday. The NBA announced in January 2025 that Rozier was under federal investigation in connection to a sports betting scandal that dated back to the 2023 season during his time as a Hornet. The league continued to allow him to play during the 25 campaign with Miami, as he had not been charged with any crimes. Now, this dope, Stephen A. Smith, went on First Take, and he's been blaming Donald Trump for getting revenge, just arresting people for revenge. But according to this article, the NBA announced in January that Rozier was under investigation by the federal government. That is the Biden administration. This is how bad this is. This has been going on for a while. So this would have happened no matter who was president. This scandal would have happened. So we have another one of these so-called influencers who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Doesn't know what he's talking about, which most of these people don't know what they're talking about. He certainly doesn't. But I'll give you more stuff. But why this is important? Now we know that in this year in Major League Baseball, the Guardians have a scandal involving relievers Luis Ortiz and the closer Emmanuel Clase. Now those guys were basically put on administrative leave. They're getting paid. They cannot participate in winter ball. They were told last week that they wanted to participate in the Venezuelan Winter League. They were told they couldn't because they were under investigation. Obviously, I guess because they would be representing Major League Baseball and their teams. So they're not allowing them to play even in the off season. So they can't make any kind of living at all. Just sort of extra money for themselves. But what's interesting is that last year, of course, we know the interpreter for Shohei Ohtani was arrested and indicted, and he admitted to guilt. But the problem with that was that so much money has been passing hands that there's a belief that Ohtani knew about it. I believe Ohtani knew about it, and Major League Baseball covered it up. A couple of things you must know about Ohtani's agency, which are his agents. That's CAA. CAA is one of the big agent firms in Hollywood. And I believe they use their influence to get him out of any kind of indictment with the federal government. They were very quick to say that he was innocent of any wrongdoing. I don't know what happened, but they were very quick to not say he did nothing wrong in terms of the betting, which was basically sports betting going on in other sports. That's what the interpreter was doing for the most part. And we know this year that CAA hired and are representing both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Why? I have no idea why. You got one guy that is completely shot mentally. He's been shot mentally for a long time. And we have this other person who is completely deranged, always drunk, always on something. Doesn't make any sense when she talks. So what are they promoting with them? I don't know. But I believe that was a quid pro quo to getting Ohtani out of the mess that he was in. Now, I believe that there are other players involved. And I know specifically with the Guardian situation, that this is a pretty big probe that's going on with Major League Baseball. There could be other players involved and other individuals within Major League Baseball. Most of this is criminal activity. This whole thing in the NBA, that's criminal activity. With Billups and Rozier, this is criminal activity. This is not the guys have a gambling problem. No. They have weakness. No. This is criminal activity. These are criminals. If they weren't doing this in the NBA, they'd be doing it outside in the real world. Some kind of crime. Same thing with Clase. The same thing with Ortiz. Same thing with the interpreter. This is all criminal activity that's going on. And the reason is simple. I think I've said this here and there in videos. I forget which video I said it in. These people are all criminals for the most part. It's all criminal activity. They weren't doing this stuff in these settings. They'd be doing them in different settings. But let me, again, get back to this other article, and then we can finish up this video. But that's why this is so important, because this is going on other sports. It's going on in the NFL. It's going on in hockey to a certain degree. And, of course, in Major League Baseball. We know about the umpire from last year. They got fired, even though MLB said that he wasn't involved in any kind of gambling, but his friend was. Again, from Outkick, as Terry Rozier was being cuffed for gambling, highlights of a suspicious awful game last year went viral. Now, I'm not going to play the highlights, but there was a suspicious game, and he went out early in the game, obviously, like I said in the video. But I'm going to mention this again. I do not endorse gambling here at the Hut because, one, gambling only pays when you're winning, And of course, the casino is the only one that makes the money. The gambler doesn't. The gambler always loses something. They lose their soul, they lose their money. I would also mention this. Do not be surprised if a big YouTuber that's your favorite YouTuber is going to get swept up at some point in a gambling scandal. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee that. And we see all these other YouTubers that are my competitors. They all promote this garbage. They all promote this shit. This stuff ruins people. It ruins families. You know, it's criminal activity, and you're participating in it. I believe this is criminal activity, in my opinion. Getting involved with gambling, you don't know who's behind these apps. You don't know who's behind all that, and most of the time, it's criminal enterprise. It's the Bonanno crime family. It's the Gambinos, or whatever ethnicity you want to choose. It all goes back to the same place. You never know if someone has set up an app. You don't know where that money is going. You don't know what it is funding. You don't know what it is promoting outside of that app. But if you're having to deal with these crime families, then it's promoting other criminality. And you don't want to get involved in that. And I don't. That's why this channel, and I believe that to a certain degree, some of these channels' popularity, so-called popularity, stems from promoting the gambling, and the gamblers are going in just to get the picks. And I'm going to point something out too. Some gamblers are going to lose money, and it's going to come out that's one of these YouTubers promoted something about a baseball player or a team, and that gambler's going to sue him if it comes out that there was some kind of gambling going on, some kind of like criminal activity going on. It's going to happen. That happened in the 1919 White Sox. Somebody sued them and brought it to trial. That's that famous trial. That wasn't a criminal trial. That was a civil trial. And I don't know, they weren't arrested for anything. They weren't arrested. But there was a trial because somebody complained. A gambler complained. But I can guarantee you, folks, stay away. Just stay away from that stuff. I know I do. I don't know anything about that stuff anyway. I think most of them don't know it either. Most of the YouTubers don't. YouTubers don't care anyway. They just want to make money, get more people to watch the show, send them the super chats. They don't care. They don't care about their audience. I care about my audience. No, I wouldn't go that far, but you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But we're going to keep an eye on this because this is going to be pretty bad. And this Justice Department, this FBI, they're not fooling around. They're going after the criminals, and they don't care. Well, thank you for watching this video, and of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut too, and I'll see you later.